I'm going to show you exactly how to make AI agents for your business. The truth is, the barrier to entry for AI agents is getting lower every single day, but most businesses are still implementing the wrong things. I'm going to show you exactly how to identify where to start, how to plan your build, and then how to execute that into your business. My name is Scott Bartnick. I'm a two-time Inc. 5000 CEO, and I've been building systems, workflows, and automations way before the general public was with AI. AI agents really are no longer chatbots. If you're just using ChatGPT, you're not getting the full benefit of AI agents. When we talk about AI agents, they're really treated more as a team member who has a standard role and they're able to go execute on things without having you click all the buttons. They can do research, they can implement, they can answer questions. But the thing is, they actually understand the meaning behind what they're doing and the business reason, and they can evolve intelligently like an employee would. The problem really is businesses are implementing the wrong things. They're not really looking at what the constraints are in their business. So before you ever start figuring out where can I put AI, it's where do I need AI? So you need to have that mind shift is where is your time going? Where are you losing money? Where are you losing clients? And then how do I solve this problem with AI? Now, the reality is there's only four questions you need to ask yourself before you determine if you have a true constraint in your business. Now, this constraint will identify where you can actually implement that AI. Is by fixing this, am I going to increase lifetime value of a client? Am I going to increase new revenue? Am I going to reduce risk in my business? Or am I going to recapture time in my business? If the answer is no to any of those, you don't have a constraint and there's no reason to go automate and build. You really need to focus on implementing solutions that are actually going to move the needle in your business, or AI just becomes another tool that has no impact. And we see that all the time with our clients. Now, the easiest way to identify where to actually start implementing AI is to look at your time. So what I do is I always try to remove myself so I don't have to be involved in the day-to-day operations. If I am consistently doing something over and over again, especially if it's repeated, then that is where I can start looking at AI. Now, I really view this as if I'm going to potentially, if it's something I could have hired a VA for or an assistant or even an executive, if I'm planning to hire someone, first, let me see what I can implement with AI. So if I do hire someone, they have a higher leverage in the first place. Once you determine this process, you really need to understand what the work actually entails. So I just built an AI agent that intelligently scrapes YouTube and finds content ideas for me. Now, this replaced two consultants and hours of my time building research and strategies. And what I wanted to do is replace the consultants because it was very expensive. I was spending over $20,000 a month and not getting the results I wanted. And then I was still doing research on top of it. So this not only saved me a whole bunch of money, got me better results, brought in new clients, but also saved me a whole bunch of time. So this was a screaming yes to automate. But the reality is I couldn't automate it until I understood the process. So I actually had to go in and do the work. Now, the reason why we're doing that is because the next step of this is going to be to document that process. And what we want to do is build out standard operating procedures as we document this process as if we were going to hire someone to do the work. So we really want to be intentional because if you don't understand the process and you can't document it, you really can't get AI to do it. Now, the only caveat to that is you can have a conversation with AI to help you plan and determine what that process is, but you'd still learn how to implement this on your own first, even if you just do it one time. So you learn what the nuances are and you really get deep into it. Now, what I typically do is I do the process at least once. I record myself doing it with Loom or another tool, and then I transcribe that into a detailed SOP. Once I have that SOP, I want it to be as detailed as possible so that if I hired someone off the street, they could read it and understand it. So that means if there's math involved, if there's metrics, if there's tools, if there's access, you need to have all of that documented. What tools do I need? What access do I need? What are the formulas? Who is involved? What every little thing. And then you want to define every metric, everything involved as much as possible. Now, this seems like a lot, but you can use ChatGPT, you can use Claude, you can use Manus, you can use all these tools in planning mode to have a conversation back and forth and basically build out this SOP. But you don't want to start building your agents until this SOP is fully defined. Same thing as you wouldn't necessarily want to hire a new employee until you had a clear understanding of what they were doing, unless they're coming in as a consultant. Now, once we have that SOP and we've done the process and we understand what actually works, and the key thing here is you need to make sure that that process actually works because, again, if you're implementing a solution to a problem that doesn't work, even if you're using AI, it's still not going to work. So you need to have a working solution. Same thing as if you hire a VA. VAs typically don't build process for you. They just follow a robust process. So if you don't have that, you're not ready to automate. But once you do have that, you can go into any tool. Right now, Claude seems to be the most powerful when it comes to planning, but it really doesn't matter to what your preference is. And you want to further build out that tool and then ask questions back and forth. So you give them this SOP and you say, what are our gaps? What are missing? What questions do you have about this plan? How can we make this more refined? And then you build out an entire plan document. So you take that SOP and you add just more details, more strategy. You say, act as a programmer. What gaps do you see in here? And then if you're trying to build out a UI, UX, you can say, I want it to look like this tool. But the idea is you're going to build out a really strategic plan with AI first, just by having questions back and forth. Now, at the end of this plan, you should ask for the plan document. So you should have a Word document, a Markdown document, which is just basically text format of the exact plan. And then what I highly recommend is reading through it and making sure it makes sense to you. Because if it doesn't make sense to you and you can't have questions back and forth to get them answered, what you're going to end up doing is wiring up an agent that's not working correctly. So that is the next step, is just fully understanding this plan and building it out. Now, as simple as that sounds, you're getting really close to being able to implement an agent. And the old way used to be having to use tools like N8N, Zapier, Make, but I'm going to show you a much easier way in the direction that all of AI is going. So in step 4, all we really have to do is build and execute. Now, you just need to know a few tools to understand how to do this. Now, the easiest tool, in my opinion, currently to use for agents is Manus. However, the most powerful is still Claude. This will continue to change, and it used to be that any agent or workflow had to be built out in Zapier or N8N, but you really don't need those tools anymore. However, you do need to know what tools you need access to. Just because Manus does 99% of it, you might still need to give it access to your Gmail. You might still need to give it access to Excel spreadsheets. If you're getting more advanced, you might be able to give it access to a database. For me, I use Supabase, which is just Excel spreadsheets on steroids. And you have to basically log into those platforms. And I will show you exactly how I do this in Manus. And then if you're trying to get more of that SaaS version, that more advanced version, you would use Claude. But for me, I can build out an entire workflow in Manus in minutes. And then if I need it to be triggered in certain different ways, there are other tools you have to use. So I'll walk you through that right now. So if we go over to Manus, Manus is an AI agent tool or workflow tool. And basically the main way it's used is by either having conversations like ChatGPT. However, the difference is basically build all the steps you need. So if you're saying do research on this, it will go build a program, grab the APIs, which is a way for it to access different tools. So basically one tool calling another tool, and then we'll go do that right in the feed. So you can build all of this in as if you're going to build this crazy workflow or research process into Manus, which is super powerful. The best thing too is you can go ahead and schedule automation. So in Manus, it come in here, and I'm not getting paid for this. I'll put a link down below, but I think I get 500 free credits. So this is not a promotion for them. I think this is one of the better tools, but I will say the tools are going to change rapidly. So if you're watching this a year from now, the tools have probably changed. However, the concepts will not have. And so that's the key thing here, is understanding how these concepts work. So I came in here under just settings, and then you can go into scheduled. So this is different tasks that I can have run every single morning. So if I needed a weekly email or daily email, or I wanted to go through my inbox every single night at a specific time, I could do that by adding a schedule here. But the advantage and the reason why I like Manus is it's very user friendly. So I can just have a conversation with it and say, hey, I want to do this, and I want to do it every single morning at 9 a.m. And I can tell it in its normal chat, and it'll do it. Now, where these become more agent-like is obviously they're intelligent and you can talk back and forth, but you can connect different tools. So this is becoming the standard for any situation. So if you're using Claude or using Manus, you can connect these tools. Now, the reason why I like Manus right now is because you don't have to go out of different locations to build dashboards and build tools. You can do that all through chat and through conversations. So it combines UI, which is the front end, and the back end, which is how you interact. The UI is how you interact with the tool, and then the back end is what's actually happening behind the walls. but you don't have to understand behind the walls. And so all I have to do is click here and I can connect it to different tools. I mentioned Superbase, which I use all the time for data storage, but that could just be as easy as Excel spreadsheets. I've got it connected to Gmail, to all my Google Drive tools, to Anthropic. You can attach Asana, project management, Notion. But if you come in here, all I'm doing is picking the tools that I want to connect to. So typically with workflows, you're going to use things like Zapier, N8N, or Make. So you can connect it just by hitting connect. So every tool's login is a little different. Sometimes you just click and authorize like you would normally log in. Sometimes they ask for a URL. I'm not going to show you exactly how to do each one because they're fairly simple, and it's usually just simple as grabbing a login. Now, one of the advantages is you can build custom connections, but you don't have to really worry about building the custom connections. Again, what I like so much about Manus and even where ChatGPT and Claude are going is that you can just tell it, hey, I want to connect to this tool. How do I do it? So again, the advantage is as you build these connections, which are just logging in. So as you log into your tools, you can start having questions. So I can ask it, hey, can you check my email for this? Can you remove all the marketing emails and put it in this folder? Can you do X, Y, and Z? So this becomes a more advanced ChatGPT, but where it comes super advanced, I'll show you a quick example of what I built is in the same dashboard. I all through chat and through conversations, through this platform, you can build out different tools, and I don't need to connect anything to do this. So I can just, let's build it like Asana. So I told it I wanted to build like Asana, and basically it actually built it. So now I can view this dashboard. And the reason why I like this is because it's the mixture of front end, back end all together. And I can just go ahead and publish this. I can build it in with a custom domain. But then this is what the tool looks like. And you guys saw the feed. Most of that was just like 1 or 2 lines of me saying what I want to do. And you can interact with it. You can change things. I can add tasks. I can do a whole bunch of information in here. So this wasn't even a full AI agent. This was a software. But the reason why this is so powerful is because I did it with 2 or 3 prompts. And what we do is as you have these problems, you just start connecting the tools, and then you don't need Zapier, you don't need Make, and you can build all of this in by just saying exactly what you want to do. Now, Claude has a very similar experience. However, you need to connect more tools. Claude is a little bit more powerful, but I would say if you're not building software at the moment, this is going to be easier. Now, all of the tools in the future, I believe, are going to move towards this direction. Now, the other things to understand with agents is how are they triggered? So typically with things like Zapier and other tools, you're having different tools connect. So they're called APIs. So the APIs are calling each other with basically phone calls and saying, hey, do this, hey, do that. So there are so many different ways to make all of these work. But the easiest way, again, is to build out that plan, throw that plan into a tool like Claude or into a tool like Manus and just tell it exactly what you want to do. And again, currently Manus just seems to pop it up a lot quicker. Whereas if you're building a massive software, go with Claude. But if you're just trying to get a problem solved, go with Manus. Now, the biggest thing here is you really need to have a mindset shift. You really don't want to focus on the technology behind this because it's getting easier and easier. You want to focus on the system. So the first thing is, do I have a true constraint in my business? Now let's document the solution to that constraint, and then let's go implement AI. That's the process that you should take to really become successful. Now, if you like videos like this and you found it helpful and you want to get some more advanced help, make sure to subscribe down below. I continue to produce videos like this every single day. And if you want my free AI SOP, you can grab that down below, as well as the other SOP templates that I mentioned before. And if you're truly interested in scaling your business, check out the Founder Systems AI course and community. Thank you.